Hello, hello. I'm back again. Looking to continue with the original philosophical rambling here, or rather not continue it, rehash it, I should say. Focusing on the topic of ethics again today. And yeah, if you recall or not, if you watched the video, I was referring to my own sort of stance of being something like saying ethics is unethical and morality is immoral, which sounds obviously quite contrary. But I have a reason for saying this. This is more sort of pushing towards the meta ethics kind of category here. But anyway, going to be a bit of an educational video in a way, because I do feel it's appropriate to bring in some terminology. So let's have a look what we got. High tech. The ding. Oh no, the ding. Cameras. My God. Anyway, so the first one, as you can see, virtue ethics. I'm sure you've all heard this before, and this is pretty highly associated with Aristotle, a name we've all likely heard. And this is basically a focus on not the actions you carry out with their moral, not what the results of your moral actions. It's not to do with anything like that. Virtue ethics is about your moral character. And this is why it's virtues. It's about nurturing the virtues within, things that you or Aristotle or whoever would deem as being a virtuous thing in order to improve yourself, not to improve, not to focus on the actions you're carrying out or the consequences of them, which is a pretty solid position, I think. But again, we can look at other situations where this is very much a kind of isolated view of like ethics in a way. It's like an egotistical focus, which I think is a pretty good way of looking at things in a way. And by egotistical, I just mean focus on improving yourself rather than others, so to speak. In that sense of it, it does seem to be fairly solid. Anyway, moving on from that, we have deontology, which is going towards the Kantian ethics. This is very similar. This is why I've paired them up like this. So deontology is, yeah, Immanuel Kant's kind of view of things. Like, you should treat your morals, your moral principles, he called them a categorical imperative. As in, if you think lying is bad, then never lie. Never lie under no circumstances, never lie. So it's basically you treat your moral principle as if it's a universal law that's true, an objective moral truth. Because you cannot prove that anything is an objective moral truth, but he was saying it's you believe in it so strongly that you act out as if it is a moral reality, a moral absolute in the universe. Again, moral absolute. I have to be very careful with the terminology in philosophy because, yeah, what is real and what is absolute is moral realism, moral absolutism. Different meanings. So basically, you act as if it's a law of the universe, so to speak, as in a physical law. Treat it as such. So they're two similar views here. Again, it's not really paying any attention to the consequences of such actions. Whereas deontology is focused on how you act. Virtue ethics is focusing on your character. So we're taking a little bit of a jump here. So we've gone from virtue ethics, the character that you are, like saying, I am a, what could I say? I'm an honest person. I'm an honest person. I try to embody this virtue of being honest. And then if I go into deontology, then I have to not just try and establish this virtue. I need to become it, so to speak. I need to act in an honest way and speak honestly. But as you can imagine, you can come across certain situation scenarios, going back to what I was referring to in the first video, the hypothetical. Whereas a hypothetical scenario, like some guy you say got a gun to your head, and you have to speak. You can't help but to speak for whatever reason, and you say like, I'm going to go through, and he says, I'm going to go through this door and kill whoever's behind this door. Which door has people behind it? Door A or door B? And if you know there are people behind door A and no one behind door B, you want him to go through door B if you don't want him to kill people. But then, of course, if you're honest, then you're essentially sentencing those people to death. But yeah, Immanuel Kant, of course, he doesn't just say that's how you should act, but he backs it up with you should follow these this categorical imperative, this moral rule, as if it's a law, but you got a duty to follow out and to act in this manner within reason. Yeah, still use reason and rationality. So he does add on the odd exception here and there. Anyway, so you get the idea. So character, virtue ethics, folk not doesn't care about actions or consequences, just establishing a virtuous person. Deontological ethics, we're looking at deontology, just having some primary rules which you hold by, which you think are solid enough, but within reason, have a duty to carry them out. Next, utilitarianism. This is Jeremy Bentham, who established this idea. This is basically something that I imagine many of you have heard before. It's basically the greater good for the greatest number of people. So again, if there's something I can do where it would really, really help out 10 people in the world, but cause harm to like 50 others. Whereas my other option is to help out 10 people in not such a good way, and it's only going to harm 5 others. I would go for the second option, because I want to cause less harm. Again, this is another principle within utilitarianism where it's causing the least harm possible. But it's for the greater good, basically. And there's something attached to this in sort of the political realm to do like self-interest, which I've mentioned before briefly. Self-interest in the common good. And this kind of dovetails into this idea. Oh, what's it called now? Oh, I forgot what it's called. Is it the horror of the commons? The problem of commons? Or the tragedy? Yeah, the tragedy of the commons, I think. So basically, yeah, someone acting in individual interest, doing good for themselves in the moment, overusing resources and such. Think of, environmental damage towards other people in the future. By acting in their own interest and causing good things to happen for them and immediately around them, in the long run, it can cause greater harm. This is something we can see a lot in the world of finance, economics, business, etc., things like that, where your business can be booming and doing really well, but unbeknownst to you, somewhere across the world, because you've become so successful, you're putting people out of business through your actions, even though you're being very profitable. That kind of thing, which also leads into another concept, but let's stick to where we are at the moment. Yeah, and then we have consequentialism, which is, I guess you can understand what this is about. This is the consequence of the action. This is pretty much opposed to the deontological view, where obviously deontology is focused on how your action, what to act morally, is okay, is justified, is a moral thing to do, regardless of the consequences. Whereas consequentialism throws up this other idea of, it's not really the act that's important, it's the outcome. And of course, these are just really, really sort of basic ideas, which we're all familiar with in everyday life. We understand that, I do something, it has some good effects, some bad effects. The reason I've done it was it a good reason? Was my intention to cause something good to happen, or was I trying to cause evil? So you could say like some warmonger wants to go and start a war, destroy another nation, but as a consequence of his actions, he actually creates peace and harmony around the world. You can't say then that he is a virtuous, moral, ethical person who we should admire. It was just he was trying to cause evil, but he caused the opposite. But and this is where people can argue against. It goes, yeah, but if he did cause good in the end, then whatever so-called evil led him to push to cause all this pain and suffering in the world, and he wanted to destroy these people. The process he went through caused a good reaction, so he should still be looked at as a moral person. I guess then we could kind of say this person is good if we then saw this person go through the process of a change, and like by the time he saw what happened and no war came about, harmony happened, everyone was at peace, if he still wanted to kill these people and destroy this nation, then I think we could say, yeah, this person's not right. But if his position, his view of the subject from when he started had changed throughout, then we could say that, you know, his actions led him down the path that caused a better change. So again, it's very complicated, very nuanced. You can think of a million different scenarios for these kind of things, like infinite. Anyway, yeah, so that's the basis of that. So just, yeah, recap very quickly. Virtue ethics, nothing to do with actions or consequences. It's just your character. Deontology is your action focused. Utilitarianism is the weight. You want things, the greater good for the greatest amount of people. It's kind of a mathematical equation, so to speak. So aggregation, like what is the aggregate good, the end result when we're weighing them on the scales. And then we've got consequentialism, which is obviously focused on the outcome of the action. So these are like four pillars really of the whole ethics and moralistic field of play. And of course, there are so many subcategories within this and crossovers. And this is why I want to bring up something else right now, which let me get into this. Let me just get rid of all of that. Whoop. And it's something which I think is the way forward. It is, whoops, it's not that. That doesn't say anything. Ethical. I can spell, trust me. Ethical pluralism. Which I imagine you can guess what this means. It's not to use, because I do see this on a number of YouTube channels as well. People just tend to throw out like, oh yeah, like Stoicism, it's so good because of this. It's a very popular theme at the moment. We've seen over the past few decades, Stoicism's come on the rise. And then someone else talking about nihilism, or someone else talking about deontology and explaining it. Again, they can be explained within their own right, within their own category. It does make perfect sense. But I think what needs to be addressed more is that these are not hard, fast rules we should follow. These are items, these are tools, like a hammer, a spanner, a screwdriver, whatever, a banana, if you want to use that as a tool. And we don't have to just use one tool to tackle the problem. And this is what ethical pluralism is about. So if I see the trolley coming towards the people, and, you know, do I pull the lever and kill one person instead of 5 people dying? Yeah, ethical pluralism. But there's a number of things to take into account. At the heart of it, you just sort of say, oh yeah, these are just people. But we can then play around with this scenario in the hypothetical. We can say, well, is that one's a woman, one's a baby, an old man. This guy's going to be a genius. This guy's going to be that. Then it brings into the question something more along the lines of a problem with utilitarianism, which is how do we measure, how do we weigh the good against the bad, the possible scenarios, possible outcomes and consequences. And it's it's not an easy thing to answer, obviously. It's very complex. And then we can say, well, if you're a deontologist and it's like, oh, well, I think it's better for more people. I always think that I should, no, I think it's wrong to act and kill someone. So your action would be, well, if I pull that lever, then I'm going to kill someone. I'm going to be responsible for that. I'm going to cause that thing. But you can also argue from the deontological position at the same time. Well, my view is that, you know, people dying is a bad thing. So this is where there's going to be a lap over between the utilitarian position and the ontological position. It goes, well, I don't want people to die. People dying is a bad thing. I can act to prevent it. Then there's one person dying or 3 people dying. So that's one person dying is better for me because I don't think people dying is a good thing. Whereas a consequentialist looking at the result of the action saying, yeah, if I do this, I kill someone and therefore that's not good. But you have to weigh up all these different things. Or if I do nothing, again, doing nothing is also an action in a way. Not acting is an act. And this is where it does get quite layered and intricate. And my point, that just to reiterate what I was saying in the very first video, my position is it doesn't matter what you say you would do to someone else, because this is a hypothetical scenario. It's not really happening in the real world, obviously. But you are presenting publicly, oh, this is the thing to do. Look at me. I'm doing the right thing. Whereas in reality, you might not do that. And I gave the example last time how we act within this would be an area. Let me just go into my notes again. So throw in another technical jargon term. It's psychological. Is it egoism or egoism? Egoism. Is it egoism or egotism? I don't know, but you know, you get the idea anyway. Spelling is not my forte, to say the least. Oh, shut up. Oh, you can't see it, can you? There we go. And this is just basically saying that we all, whether we are exactly consciously aware of it or not, within our minds, we are acting with psychological egoism. And I think this is a fairly strong argument, because we all act in self-interest. If you look at what I was saying last time when I was touching on this topic, like if I'm going to, I was referring to altruism. So if I'm going to kill myself to save other people, I sacrifice my life to save other people. You might be saying, well, that's not acting in self-interest. Well, it is, because myself is my beliefs and my convictions. So I might not live on, but the act that I made will be remembered by the people, or maybe not. The principle of it, though, I'm dying for the principle that I care about. So I am acting in self-interest. It's a very bizarre way of looking at it. Self-interest makes it sound like self-interest and being selfish. I think we can put a divide between those two things to a degree. Obviously, there's a lot of lap over again, like many things, but that's the way things are. Anyway, yeah, I hope that's vaguely useful. Now, let me just do a little recap. So that's turned into a mostly educational thing here. So let me just go over them again. So we got virtue ethics, which is basically we are concerned with improving our character, to have a virtuous character. Then we have deontology, which is a focus on the act, how we act in a moral way, focus on what moral laws we should follow, with what Kant called the Let's see if I can fit it on the screen. Categorical imperatives. Whoops. Imperatives. So act like categorical imperative. Treat it like it's a law, such as a physical law of gravity or whatever. And next, utilitarianism. Basically, the weighing, the scaling of good versus bad, or better versus worse, however you wish to frame it. Basically, trying to balance things so that it's the greatest good for the greatest number of people. And finally, consequentialism, which is what it says on the tin. Focusing on the outcome, the results of the actions, and judging the morality of them by the results. Whereas virtue ethics, it's just building a moral, ethical character, a virtuous character. Deontology, viewing the morality of an action by the act itself. Consequentialism, viewing the morality of an action by the result of any action only. And utilitarianism, the weighing of positives and negatives in any kind of moral, ethical outcome, if you wish to weigh it in that way. Okay, and that is that. And something, I may as well just show this very briefly. Let's get rid of that now. Yeah, I mentioned last time about, I did give a quick flash of the book. This one. The Interpretations of Cultures by Clifford Geertz. And I would like at some point in the future to go over his definition of religion he uses in here, which I will just give you a little bit of a brief going over here. So this is his definition. I know it's written like this in the book, point by point. And then there's like several pages in the book, 12, maybe 20 pages, which goes into extraordinary detail defining what he means by each of these, which I will go over at some point. So yes, briefly for next time or sometime in the future, I'm going to be going over this. Yeah, a system of symbols which acts to establish powerful, pervasive, and long-lasting moods and motivations in men by formulating conceptions of a general order of existence and clothing these conceptions in such an aura of factuality that the moods and motivations seem uniquely realistic. So he tried to give a definition of religion without using any kind of, spiritual, like woo-woo kind of words in there, which is interesting, a very secular definition, let's say. It's an interesting way to approach it. And I personally look at this definition as a definition of what it is to be human, which I found quite interesting. And I believe I first come across this definition reading Colin Renfrew, and he was using it to define money and how we view money, which is really intriguing. So yeah, I really do like this definition. You can apply it to many different aspects of, human culture and whatnot. But I'll be going over this at some point in the future. And yeah, just a quick mention, I have set up a website with a blog on it, but it's only actually active when I'm on my computer and I remember to turn on local. So if you try to access that blog and have a read, leave a comment, whatever, then if you can't get on it, then you know why. And just so you know, it's usually going to be open, like if you're in the Americas, late in the evening is going to be the time when you can read that blog. And if you're in Europe, it's going to be early in the morning, basically. Because yeah, I'm on Vietnam time, so that is an issue. Anyway, bye-bye. That's that.